Are you attractive? Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain, and I want to welcome you to this special presentation on how to market effectively to supply chain executives. Now, these are challenging times for B2B marketers in general, but even more so when it comes to reaching decision makers in the world of supply chain management. Just getting the attention and time of supply chain buyers is tough enough, but putting your offering and most importantly, your brand front and center can be a massively difficult proposition. So today, we're going to talk about what it takes to get your message across in the supply chain space, how marketers should be communicating, what potential buyers want to hear, and most importantly, how you can become attractive to prospects. It's all part of what we call the 5 pillars of supply chain marketing: branding, online strategy and SEO, public relations and editorial, content development, and lead generation. So we're joined by 4 panelists offering unique and expert insight from both sides of the supply chain marketing equation. Allow me to introduce them to you. Georgia Raitt is Strategic Executive Leader, formerly with Covitris and the Rockport Group. Georgia has more than 25 years of executive experience across a broad range of multinational companies, including Ernst & Young, Walt Disney, and the BBC. Georgia currently serves on the board of Sarnova, a $1 billion private health, human health distribution and technology services company in the EMS and urgent care space. Carly Howe is Senior Director of Emerging Technology with Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. She's recognized as an expert in spearheading technology transformation and visionary leadership. Carly is also a mentor and respected industry authority, contributing to Logistics Tech Outlook magazine and emphasizing the vital role of women in supply chain. Randy McCleary is lead solution architect from Meyer. He's an expert in the topic of supply chain execution, emphasizing the importance of understanding the ways of doing business and navigating supply chain challenges, including those revealed by COVID-19. And Sherry Harriman is former Senior Vice President, Logistics and Supply Chain with Academy Sports and Outdoors. Prior to joining Academy, Sherry spent 29 years at Walmart, where she served in various logistics and operations roles, including Regional Vice President of Logistics and Divisional Vice President of Supply Chain for Florida and Puerto Rico. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you all on this panel. I want to start by posing this question, and I think I'm going to ask Georgia to lead us off. Georgia, what exactly does being an attractive brand look like and feel like to you? And how do you make yourself attractive to a busy supply chain executive?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And I would say that, as you think about what makes you attractive, for me, it's like starting off by saying, do you understand who you're even trying to attract? Do you understand your audience? Do you define who you are as a brand? And do you think about using the right data to understand who you are, and are you making the right touch points inside the organization? And so you can very quickly and easily get lost if you start off on the wrong foot, and that gets to be really, really hard to recover from. And then also understand that what value can you provide to the organizations that you're trying to attract? Where are you going to have those value creation moments, and how are you explaining them?
Carly, what's your perspective on that? How do you make yourself attractive?
To me personally, what makes you attractive is just understanding, do you know how your company works inside and out? I want to see how well you work together as a team, how well you know your workflows. I want to see you guys really be cohesive, because at Southern Glaciers, where I am now, right, we are a family, and I want to see that you are a family also. I want to understand that if I'm going to be doing business with you, not only is your tech looking great, your tech is flashy, your costs are competitive, but do you care about doing business with us, or do you just care about making money?
Randy, what do you think?
Carly saying, understanding your customer, understanding their value proposition, where they place value today, and being able to emulate or at least identify with their value propositions and their product lines, hugely important. If you can't identify with your customer, you're talking against essentially a brick wall, and you're having to build a conversation. But if you can, you build that relationship early and you create resonance in that conversation, which will lead to follow-on conversations.
And Sherry, how do you make yourself attractive?
So
Not to suggest you aren't already, but go ahead.
I totally agree with the comments of my peers. There are a ton of options out there for almost any product and service. And so knowing your industry, your product, your service, whatever it is, but then being able to translate that and simplify it into how it can support my business or our initiatives, so that we can keep our team focused on the things that are part of a roadmap, because otherwise in today's climate teams can get lost in all the options, and being able to be very definitive of what the product and services is offering and how it applies to where I am in my business today is absolutely a must.
Well, I love it that each of you has done a great job in kind of bringing to the fore one of the big themes of our discussion today, and that is the human element and its role in supply chain marketing. It's all important. We're going to learn a lot more about that in the minutes to come. So, Georgia, when we think about how executives make decisions today about their vendor partners, is it solely about price? Because we hear a lot about the importance of price today, or is brand still important?
It's a great question, and I'd love to hear what my peers have to say about it as well. What I would say is that price is clearly important. You see it in every RFP. If price wasn't important, there wouldn't be an RFP, right? So, and it's coming down to the numbers. But generally also what you see is it comes down to things like reputation, reliability. There's still really, really crucial factors. And some of that's around brand trust. Right? Do you know who you are as a brand and what you stand for? Are you aligned? And Carly said this earlier. Are you aligned with our culture, our expectations, our way of being? And are we compatible in that realm? Do you provide good value perception? Do you and a reputable brand is often associated with value beyond just the product or service itself. Such things as like technical support, customer service, innovation. Are we aligned cohesively as organizations on all of those things? As well as, many executives such as myself value long-term relationships. I don't just want to work with you once. I want that sustainability of a relationship time and time again, so that we can grow together, we can make plans together, we can leverage that over a multi-year engagement, so that we have consistency in the way we deliver. Because as you get to know us more, we get to know you more. The magic kind of happens in between. And I guess one of the people I would ask on this is Carly, because I think she made a really important point earlier. Do you understand us? Are you aligned with us? Is a huge part of that equation, I would say, Carly.
Absolutely. So for me, I have in my past, I have actually had someone approach me and say, hey, I want to give you this little piece of, it was like a bribe to come and get our business, right? To generate that lead. And it was actually a competitor of ours. So I questioned, well, do you know what our company does? Do you know what we're doing? I mean, let alone the fact that it was from a competitor of ours. You're trying to bribe me, if you will, to come and give you some work. How can I trust you now? How can I trust you to provide the correct solution for our company and to create that trustworthy bond that you were saying, Georgia? How am I going to be able to do that? So it comes down to doing a research of who you're approaching and who you want to do work with, understanding what we need, making sure that you're building that foundation, and then really applying the technology that you offer. In our case, we're looking to always automate. We're looking to be the next best. We're looking to further our lead in the sector that we have. So give me something that I can grasp onto. And if you can do that and you can show me how it's going to benefit me, show me that you work together as a family, you'll earn my interest and you'll definitely earn my respect.
Yeah, and both of you hit on it. But when you think about cost and branding, they're not mutually exclusive. I mean, ultimately, part of the ROI is built on the trust of a brand, and a brand is your product or service and how well you deliver on what you say your product or service can do, and then standing behind it. The cost is not only in the initial RFP, but it is a total cost of ownership. If I have to keep coming back to a particular organization and it's upgrades, updates, or we just found this glitch and it cost me resources either in my IT area or ultimately in the operation having to test it out, that's additional cost, and that's part of the equation. So getting it right the first time, having a proven solution, and the support, Carla, you mentioned the technical support and client services that backs a product is part of not only the branding, but it is part of the costing, because everything that has to be adjusted costs both companies a lot of money in the end.
And one thing, I wasn't really thinking about it until we asked the question and I saw what we were talking about. But we've touched on trust. We've touched on a little bit of delivery, which is they're hugely important. There's a saying in around our shop, and it's one day's a test, the second and then days are the standard. So if you come in and you say you're going to do something and you do it, and you continually repeat that process, you've created this interesting conversation. But if you say something and don't deliver it, you break that trust early, and it's a very hard road to repair that process. So I like looking at scale. I like looking at capacity. We talked about the trust as part of those two things, but really it gets down to delivery. Delivery and repetitive delivery creates that ongoing relationship that people really want in these marketing conversations.
Trust is difficult to acquire and easy to lose. Definitely. This is a related question. I'm going to pose it to Carly and anyone else who wants to take it. Again, it's that human element that we've been talking about so much already today. Do buyers make decisions based on data, hard data, and intellectual reasoning, because that's so much of that is part of business, or is it finally, in the end, an emotionally driven choice? Carly, are we human?
We are human. That is that's true. We as humans make emotionally driven decisions. I learned it in school years ago that if you have a very, very fun, very cool wine label, a large percentage of people are going to purchase that wine over something else that maybe got top ratings in a wine enthusiast magazine because they love the label on the bottle. Okay, we are emotional people. We buy brands because it pulls at our heartstrings. I'm sure many people here have seen those very sad dog commercials by Sarah McLachlan. We have to turn the TV off, but it pulls at our heartstrings. We're very emotional. Our customers and our consumers, in my opinion, are expecting us as the suppliers of these products to do the data-driven research ahead of time. They want us to do the dirty work so that they know they can trust us as a supplier, that they can make those emotional decisions, and they're going to get a top quality brand. That's what we do. We make sure that we provide them with all of the right fun things here, Southern Glazers, wine and spirits, right? We are providing them with all of the fun things to celebrate those moments that matter. And they have put their trust in us to make sure that we've done the due diligence to give them something incredible.
I think
Go ahead, please. Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think as much as we make decisions emotionally and with emotion, at the end of the day, emotional decisions in the supply chain can become very, very costly. And so I totally agree with what Carly said from a marketing and from a consumer perspective, how we get the product or service and meet the customer's decisions, because we as humans, we are very emotional. But when we allow that emotionality to come into the decision-making process of long-term decisions in the supply chain, which products and services are very long-term, mostly long-term decisions, I think we have to really kind of analyze that. So yes, we are emotional, human beings in supply chain. And I think, from an operations perspective, I think we have to guard against, becoming and allowing our teams to make too many emotional decisions, or we'll find ourselves. And I think there's companies that have found themselves buying too many bells and whistles that they didn't need because it was an emotional decision.
Yeah.
And then they look back and say, hang on here just a second. And that becomes part of the branding of who oversold them product that then allowing maybe emotions to come into it versus really the data behind what do I need as a company. And that's really what builds trust. But just my perspective on the difference between emotional and data, especially in the supply chain.
And I would say on the tech side, I would err on the side of Sherry on this one, which is a lot of the decisions that get made need to be data driven, because a lot of what we have to produce is outcome driven, and success is outcome driven. Whether that success is I acquired more customers, I acquired more consumers, I increased sales. We live in a metric driven world. And so as much as emotion plays into the part of it, you do have to guard against that, because there's an unconscious and a conscious bias that shows up whether we like it or whether we don't like it. And so the data helps you make the decision, even if it's not the totality of the decision. It at least guards against those conscious and unconscious bias moments to say, do I have historically, has this vendor proven themselves? Do I have data that backs up this decision? And I think the marriage between the two is honestly hard, because there's going to be a push-pull on both sides depending where you go. But I definitely, being on the data side of the house and tech side of the house, I'm definitely much more leaning that way.
Yeah. Well, Randy,
I'm going to get in bed with Sherry here a little bit here. I'm going to believe that there is an emotional side to the marketing concept that leads us to the data. I'm not saying the data is not more. It is important. It absolutely is part of the delivery. It's part of your budgets. It's part of your trust that you have to build. But when you're making those decisions, you have to use your gut. You have to believe that they're capable of making those commitments. And if you can't get there, then it doesn't matter how prevailing of a cost structure they give you. It doesn't matter what their plan looks like on paper. If you don't believe that they can deliver it, it's going to be a fail in my humble view. So you guys are right. You have to have a prevailing cost. You have to have a prevailing trust, but you have to get there. And in order to get there, you have to have an emotional connection. So I'm here for you. I'm here for you all the way.
Buyers are smart, are they not? They know when their emotions are being manipulated. They know when there's no substance under the emotions. They like the emotions and they might make the decision emotionally, but if you don't have the data underneath it, you're not getting it anywhere with them. It's a good point. Thanks for that idea of balance. Let's address another truism of sales and marketing, and that is that so many marketers and salespeople see lead generation as the ultimate key to success. Is this a wrong-headed notion? If so, why? Randy, you want to attack that?
Generations is a very important thing. I mean, you ponder the idea that your marketing team has gotten your email or your phone number or both. They are contacting you with some prevailing conversation. That's where this starts. But the question is, do they have a prevailing product? Is there an emotional connection? Do they understand your company? Do they understand your brand? Do they have a conversation where there's synergy? I mean, are they an underdog trying to reach an entrenched customer base? Or are they an entrenched customer delivery company trying to, bring up somebody? These are all important questions that SEO and search engines and things like marketing bring to the forefront of how they're going to resonate with, at least with me. When I look at these companies and find out, do they have synergy to help us along, to help me along, to help the budgets, to help the delivery requirements that I have for this particular period, this year, this fiscal? These are all important things that have to be balanced, especially if I have an entrenched provider now or a prevention conversation.
Randy, when you talk about lead generation, immediately go to like email or pop-ups, and I know they're wildly successful, and I think every executive out there cringes when you hear about that. And so, but the more targeted an email or the message can become, I think the more impactful, because it's not everyone getting the blanket emails, and an executive have to weed through the emails. It's something that I can either compile with similar type of options, or understand that, okay, that's not where I need to go right now, or my
Yeah.
teams. It's lead generation is just one of those things. It's a hard front for operational executives to kind of tackle, because it is so broad based.
But it isn't just magic that falls from the sky. I'm wondering, one of the pillars we talk about as being of prime importance is content development. What is the relationship of content development to lead generation? How does it tie back to that? How does it create good leads? Does somebody want to go with that one? Randy, you want to expound on that a little
Yeah.
more?
Yeah, if there's an engagement, whether that engagement is I bump into somebody at a conference, or somebody gives me an email, or they cold call me, however that happens, I want there to be similar answers no matter where I go find their information. If I do a Google search on you, if I go to LinkedIn, if there's an Instagram account, a YouTube video, they should all be telling the same story. If I get to similar answers along that line, if I get a different Instagram or an X conversation trail that's not congruent with the email or the interest, I'm going to disassociate before I even get anywhere deep into this. However, if they send me an email, or I'll just use email in simplistic case, if I get an email and it's conversational, it's detailed, it has depth of thought, it's sort of synergistic about what the problems or that they might be able to solve, there's interest. And if I can collaborate that with an online YouTube video or a Google search, or somehow find some people that I think are trustworthy in my friend group on LinkedIn, this confirms that there's an opportunity to go a little bit further. So there's got to be a synergy or a continuity with your online presence. It's not just the campaign. It's got to be a synergy along all of the contact points that exist today.
So I will admit, if there is a good subject line in an email, you may sucker me in 8 times out of 10. I might open it, okay? Unless it looks a little fishy. But my biggest turnoff, if you got me on the email, you're doing a good job. But my biggest turnoff is a very poorly designed website. So similar to what Randy is saying, if there are misleading stories when I go to your Instagram, LinkedIn, if something doesn't match up, that turns him off. If I go to your website and it is poorly designed and I cannot navigate to even the solutions that you offered in that email, or something that's going to continue to grab my interest, if you emailed me on something that is 2% of your business and it's not even your primary focus, I'm done. I don't care if you move to another company. I may or may not engage with you again, because it just feels ungenuine or disingenuous, right? I need someone who is doing it for the right reasons, not necessarily to increase their profit, not necessarily to move up the line. I want somebody who wants to work with me for the right reasons.
That makes sense. Let's talk about another pillar, and that is online strategy, SEO, social media. It's just so confusing these days as to how to even approach the subject, what platform to be on, what platform not to be in, how to, sell the same message across all these channels. What are the requirements for successful online strategy, and for that matter, search engine optimization change? How are those changing today from what they used to be like? Georgia, you're nodding. I'm going to hit you with that one first.
Well, I was nodding because I think that, by the way, all of the above are important, and I think Carly nailed it in saying that they all need to be cohesive. In fact, all of my peers nailed it and said they need to be cohesive. If you do not show up in a cohesive way across all of those levers, let's call them, as to how you would go to market, it's a challenge. I do think that there are lots of different tools today that help you optimize all of those. Generative AI is one of them. It is a really useful tool across all of those levels, whether it's content creation, personalization, SEO, creative design. There are ways today that didn't exist 5 years ago to do that at scale that I think that, can be very useful in helping you develop that strategy. And I'd probably throw it over to Sherry, who I know has really good thoughts in this area as well.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, just the scaling of the data, whether it's in the content development or in the development of the tool of how it's going to help a business operate more efficiently, because that's what all these tools in products and services, whatever market you're in, that's the message, is that you have a product that is going to help the customer. How do you message that in the best way? And the more you can simplify the data by being able to take it in grand scale and focus it more targeted to my needs, the more effective it's going to be in getting my attention or my investment of time in how I pursue your options.
I agree that generative AI has a data component to it. But Georgia, do you believe that AI can add that personal touch? Because I have gotten those AI messages and it just feels that someone else has written it and it doesn't feel genuine. Do you believe that we'll get to a point where it can truly support the brand development and the marketing and the lead generation for these teams out there?
So firstly, generative AI is a huge word, and it's today massively overused. So just as a technologist, as you are as well, Carly, massively overused. What I would say is that we have access today to use tools more simply than we've ever had before. So in the past, where LLMs, large language models, would have existed, and machine learning, algorithms, tables would all have been used. Today, you've got the speed to deliver, and you've got creative level tools of content generation, visual AI aspects that didn't exist before. What I would say about, to answer your question more succinctly, is I would say that as you think about the amount of data you have in the organization and the amount of training you are willing to do to the model to get the right outcome, to allow that brand persona, the personalization of who you are speaking to, and the tone of voice takes time. That is a model that you have to train for yourself in your organization. If all of you are going out to ChatGPT and saying, write me an email, and prompting it with 3 levels of a prompt, you're going to get something that looks like it was generated by ChatGPT, not to use branding here, or Gemini, we'll be agnostic. I think if you bring that in-house and you have your own team that's looking at how do I leverage these tools to power my organization at a more personalized and deep level and truly understand the training that goes into those models behind the scenes, we can absolutely all get there. But it's commitment, it's resources, it's investment. And we're in an industry that struggles with that. And so we've got some proof points, and we're going to need to have some organizations that help us with that. But it's definitely achievable.
Thank you.
One thing, I don't disagree, but I think we need to keep in mind one thing, and that's the enemy here. And the enemy here is the search engines. So what I want to talk to you about is all the goodness that we just talked about. If you create the perfect email or the perfect conversation and you do a great job, one of your team members who is associated with your company on X or Facebook or any other site can sabotage all of that goodness with one bad post. And it's going to show up because of their association with your brand. And so knowing that conversation, knowing that that's out there is all but one search engine. So my advice is this: don't be afraid to Google yourself. And I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying your company brand. If you can't Google your company brand and get positive, supportable, reliable, and I would say arguably marketable conversations, then you have some job to do that's outside of everything we're talking here. You have some internal conversations with your teams about, what the external conversations are. You have to talk about value systems and trust and what voice, and I'm using George's word, voice, do you want to portray here to the outside environment when you get Googled?
And the last thing I'd say on that is don't allow generative AI or just AI in
I'm sorry,
general.
go ahead. Do you have more to?
I was just going to say, just don't allow your company to leverage generative AI in a way that it makes it lazy versus effective, because I think there's a real risk in that, and that's just allowing it to be useful as a resource, but not the resource, so to speak.
So everybody today is talking about journeys. Everybody's on some kind of a journey, and supply chain marketers and supply chain buyers are no different. What do we need to learn about the buyer's journey to become a successful marketer? Sherry?
So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but there are so many alternatives or solutions that the buyers are having to navigate. So the more direct, the more transparent that a marketer can be about their product or service, the more informative, educational, in a succinct manner, the better, because time is money, as the cliche says, in supply chain. Everything is about efficiency, and so how I'm able to get that information when I'm searching for a solution, the more quickly that I can make a decision. So, and navigate all the options that would be to find and identify the best solution for what I'm searching for within my organization.
Randy, you've talked a lot about the buyer's journey in your experience. Do you have something to contribute on that?
Yeah, with my career path, I end up getting sold into a lot. So I have to speak to a lot of potential. And then I also have a array of trusted vendor partners that I have to deal with and want to deal with, right? And some are challenged, but I still deal with them because their delivery is essentially peerless. So it's not about making friends. Whether I don't give these guys, Christmas cards or birthday cards, that's not our relationship. Our relationship is delivery. It's a delivery mechanism. And if they have consistency of delivery and they have consistency of pricing and they have consistency of scale and capacity, which is things we talked about earlier in the conversation, then they're going to get consistency of business. I mean, they're going to get first call. As I always like to say, this is yours to lose. Times that is the conversation that goes on. It's like you've had a prevailing conversation with us for a while. I'm going to give you a bite at this apple, and it's yours to lose. And if I have to go somewhere else, you're going to have to fight. You're going to be pushed back into the cadre again. And now you're going to have to fight your way back.
Yeah,
because it's a competitive landscape. It's a competitive landscape.
Sure. Well, I do want to bring the audience into this. We have a few questions that I'd like you guys to address, and I'll just put them out there and see who wants to take them. This one says, how do I, as a marketer, get the attention of supply chain executives when they're already inundated with information, pitches, promotional messages? In other words, how do I cut through the noise today? Georgia, why don't you start on that one? What do you think?
I'm happy to. I think a lot of what we have said should help our audience with that, which is cutting through the noise means knowing your audience. What value are you bringing? What matters to the audience or to me? So talk about me. What matters to me? Do you know me well enough? Do you know what our organization stands for? Do you know what's ailing our organization today? What problems are we trying to solve? So knowing your audience, I think, is really, really important. Have I got a trusted relationship? How do I build a trusted relationship? And honestly, make it relevant to the problem at hand. So be relevant. So that's both in time and in approach. So am I approaching you with a great solution at a time at which you've got no bandwidth and no budget even to consider it? And am I being really relevant in my approach to you? So that would be my top things off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
you mentioned it, and I think that that's important because I loved what you said, Randy. Relationships still trump all, but it's not the buddy-buddy relationship. It's
Yeah.
we have a business relationship that a company delivers on. So my take on it is be real. Authenticity builds trust, and trust is a necessary and a strong foundation for strategic partnerships to move on from.
Thank you for that. This question says, is there anything different or unique about marketing to supply chain executives and buyers as opposed to any potential marketing target? How about Carly? What do you think?
So I think this is where Sherry mentioned before with data. We need data, we need numbers, we need information. And I had mentioned, we are emotional human beings. We make purchases based on emotion. But if you are going to target a supply chain executive, we are so data driven. We are so trend driven, forecast driven. Come to us with what Georgia said, relevant information on how you are going to penetrate our industry or our sector and make us better than we have been, but have the facts to stand up and to prove it.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that one? Just what is
Thank you, sir.
unique
I get
about
it.
supply chain? Randy?
Supply chain is sort of a niche environment. I mean, we all have heard supply chain because of COVID, and it's great. I mean, I love the exposure. I love getting conversations going with people about what supply chain is. But here's the thing. We know our industry. The people in this room know of each other, know of each other's successes, know of each other's challenges. And so again, if you're going to sell into this industry, having a detailed conversation about what that company is, about what their cycle of automation is, or their cycle of technology, or more importantly, their budgetary constraints. Are they fiscally driven? Are they on a 3-year cycle, a 5-year cycle? Are they interested in minor point solution automation, or are they interested in full automation systems and what their particular journey steps are? Don't come in here with a complete automated warehouse management system if they are completely different kind of a customer base. If you have a manufacturing concern, make sure you understand that your manufacturing software that works great for, say, mechanical pick and place isn't going to work the same in a food manufacturing environment. It just won't work the same. There are going to be different implications. And knowing that upfront helps you sell into those particular customers better.
Yeah. This question picks up on what we were already talking about earlier about AI and generative AI. And the way that we framed AI today is kind of as an assist, a help, but not a replacement for what you're doing out there in the world as human beings. But this questioner wants to know about further down the line, is AI or generative AI fated to take over all these great personal things we've been talking about, removing the need for humans in the mix whatsoever? Might the end result of this be the end of the human supply chain marketer and supply chain? Sherry, what do you think?
I don't think so. I think
No?
my generative AI or the broad-based, just artificial intelligence should always be viewed as augmented, additive. There will always need to be that personalization. In my opinion, there will always need to be that personalization that helps leverage that, maybe refine it, and determine the best use case for whatever output is generated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add as well, if you would allow me, Bob, which is
Sure.
I completely agree. I think there is so much fear in this space. We're in danger of people not embracing the really good parts of this space for fear of like, will this replace me? Will this change my role? Yes, guess what? It will. It will allow you to do the things that you can use your brain for that a machine can't do. So I look at AI and I get asked the question all the time, being in technology myself. I get asked all the question consistently. Is it going to replace engineering jobs? Is it going to replace IT jobs? No, it's not going to replace those things, but is it going to remove the mundane elements that are automatable? just like you see in warehouse automation today. Did that make us better? Yeah, it made us better. It made us faster. It allowed us to distill and understand information faster. So I don't think there's any threat to the human race, but I do think it behooves us to really understand where can it help our business and where could it hurt our business. Because going back to my earlier point, it's a huge word that gets really overused, and executives need to really understand what outcome do you want to derive and where can it help me today versus tomorrow. Because artificial intelligence, to Sherry's point, is a gigantic word, and we are nowhere near general artificial intelligence. Generative AI is creating a new outcome from existing information, data, or workflow. That we're doing a good job of. So embrace it. Don't be scared of it. Allow it to free you up from the stuff that none of us really want to do on a daily basis anyway. And use that brilliant brains that you all have to the next great thing you want to achieve for your organization.
This has been a fantastic
for one-
conversation. Oh, go on, Randy. I'll
think-
give you the last word before we go to final question.
I agree. I think everything we've talked about is very important, but there's one thing generative AI can't do, and that's give emotion. It doesn't have heart. You just have to keep in mind that if you want an emotional conversation, you're not going to get that out of generative AI yet. And so you, the person, need to take control of the conversation, you need to take control of it and put yourself into these tools. Just reiterate, it's a great tool. It's got a great future. We're all going to be using it at some level, but we need to pour ourselves into it and keep it guided, keep it rooted in where we want it to go.
Fantastic. And of course, that word that keeps popping up here is trust, and trust is a human thing and very much the center of everything we've been talking about today. Unfortunately, I have to say we are just about out of time. We have time for one final question. Now, I'm going to pose this to each of you, beginning with Georgia. And here it is. In your opinion, and based on your personal experience, what is the secret of successful branding? And how should I begin to make that happen?
It's a great question. I think it depends entirely on your organization and what it is that you're trying to achieve. I would say for me, it's all about knowing your customer. It's knowing your customer. It's ensuring that you are matching what you are offering to what they are asking for and what they need in the moment. I would say ensuring that the value you are providing provides value to your customer, and that you can actually use data to explain that. And then what I would also say is, don't be afraid of embracing data-driven analytics to showcase how awesome that you are and the service that you provide. And using analytics is not a bad thing in how you go to market either. And so for me, it's develop that trust, embrace it, and really know your audience, know what you're trying to achieve, and align your goals.
Great. Carly, what's the
For
secret?
me, yes, and for me, it's actually a little bit different than what Georgia had said. Mine is know why you are doing what you are doing. Think about the technology that you have. Think about your offering to your customer. I want you to know your company inside and out, whether you are the founder and you are creating new technologies to fit in your portfolio, or if you are just an employee working there, know it like the back of your hand, embrace it, feel it within your blood. Because at that point, you will find the right connection with the right customer. Everything will mesh, everything will come together the way it's supposed to. This is your blueprint for your company, and it's your one opportunity to make a huge impact for companies like ours here and to reach those executives to truly change the industry. So go out there, be true to yourself, be true to your company, and deliver what you're known for.
Randy.
You said something, Carly said something right at the last sentence. She said something, what you want to be known for. That is so important. So I agree with both of what was said here. We've talked about the details. We've talked about the carry through, the ability to have statistically good information. We've talked about the knowing yourself, right? We talked about knowing your product, knowing yourself, knowing your value proposition. But then we my contribution to this is know what your customer wants. And if you don't know that, you're not going to be able to sell into them. Know what your convincing conversation needs to be, what's your synergy between your business line and your customer's business line, and how can you basically amplify that into a larger conversation.
Sherry, last word to you.
You know, it's been said by all of my the panelists, but it's say what you're going to do or what your product does, and then deliver on it. I mentioned it earlier, but I think it resonates throughout the operations committee or operations community. Is be credible, be real, because that authenticity is what will build the trust that's needed to build those strategic partnerships.
How do you make yourself attractive as a supply chain marketer? I think we've learned a lot in the last hour about how to do that. And I want to thank my great guests today, my great panelists, Georgia Raitt, Carly Howe, Randy McCleary, and Sherry Harriman for your fantastic insights. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain. I want to thank our executive producer and promoter, Ralph Hendren, as well, for helping to put all this together and being the guiding light behind the whole thing. So everybody, go forward, be human, be attractive, and everyone have a great day. Thanks so much, everybody.